Hello, class. Today, for social media marketing, again, this is Marketing 455. Um, I'm going to hit on how social media has changed marketing and business, kind of the evolution of players, kind of various data, privacy, and so forth. Really, to get started, the social media is basically a evolution of the internet, but if you really step back, what the internet helped businesses and marketers is really to start reaching customers outside of their normal geographic reach. From there, social media really, brought about this new way for companies to market. Smaller companies could market and advertise like larger companies. And then just learning from eBay and some of the online e-commerce businesses, they started creating marketplaces and so forth. And so now social media is also a platform to exchange products. From really what I want to hit here is just how social media has changed marketing in many ways. So you have new ways to target customers. You have the ability to remarket. All of us have probably experienced this. You go onto Amazon, you're shopping for something, and then you go to Instagram, and you instantly see advertisements around that product that you were shopping for, and Amazon's probably the best one at it, but that's remarketing. Basically, they've set up a way, and it's via tags, but they've set up a way to trigger advertising for anyone who's been looking for a certain product. And then grassroots marketing, right? Grassroots marketing has been around forever, but social media has allowed it to kind of evolve to the online digital space. The other thing that it's brought about is giving customers a much greater voice. So people can comment, they can share, they can become advocates, they can, try to distract people from using a company. But that power of the customer is actually much stronger now. Businesses on the flip side can easily get a pulse on what their customers are feeling. So it's easy to do quizzes, polls, surveys. You can also do pretty advanced A/B testing. Back in the day when I would do A/B testing with like postcards and direct mail, it was a lot of manual manipulation on Excel sheets, and now it's pretty dynamic. You can monitor your competitors, see what they're doing. And then another thing is social media has become a huge factor in the brand strategies of companies, the type of content they post, the theme, the tone, and so forth. One of the things I wanted to just quickly show you, and later in the class, you'll actually take some modules on this, but this is just an example of Facebook advertising off of a advertising account I have. But when you go to advertise, you can basically select what type of audience. And one of the things I wanted to call out was if you look in the lower right, the detailed targeting. Like one of the things cool about Facebook is if you're targeting small businesses that are just starting up, you can look to see how soon did they activate a business page on Facebook and target them accordingly. And so again, that's just one of many signals that social media gives advertisers to help them target better. It's also changed many factors with marketing. One, free marketing to businesses. You can use user-generated content, which is great, like word of mouth, right? That's basically content created for you. It has also increased competition, right? So the reality is just more people can get into the market. one of the biggest things I feel social media has brought about is this idea that small businesses can advertise without high cost. And what I mean by that is, back in the day, to run a sophisticated advertising campaign, billboards, radio, TV, you almost always had to work through an agency, which that had a markup cost, but then you really had to spend a certain threshold of money to get any type of effectiveness from advertising. And with social media, I mean, if you target a couple of zip codes, you can be effective with, $100 a week. I mean, obviously that depends on kind of exactly what type of business, but it has just broken down the cost barrier that has been around forever. The other thing is it's really brought about the idea of influencers, right? The ability to use everyday common users of products as, in essence, your talent in your advertising. And that has evolved with a lot of content developers and content marketing. Probably one of the most polarizing aspects of social media is it has become a huge part of political campaigns. And again, back to the grassroots marketing, it's a way to reach people. And then most platforms, or many platforms, have some type of grouping or communities. And so what's great there is companies can market to those groups, and they in essence become kind of segments, marketable segments. So with that, probably one of the biggest things I want everyone to think about is just the reality that even though there's a lot of new opportunities, a lot of cool tools, the targeting's, sophisticated, it actually forces or elevates the need for better strategy and planning, because you can waste a lot of time. And even though you can do it at a low cost, you can rack up that cost pretty quickly. So, one thing is social media is not the silver bullet, right? So, you can do a lot with it. You really should look at how it can integrate with other marketing and promotional mix tactics. Know your customer. I mean, this becomes so important because, at the most basic level, know what platforms your customers are using. You don't want to spend your time messing around creating content on the platform that your audience doesn't go to. And then really think about what are those KPIs, or what are you trying to achieve, and track those accordingly. So if you're trying to build brand perception, you're going to look at more engagement, reach. But if you're trying to convert sales, you're really going to look at like how many people are clicking through to your website or filling out a form on the platform, and so forth. Data privacy, you can read this. This is a hot topic if you've watched any of the press with Meta and some of the other big platforms. It's constantly, how are they using your data? Do they have the proper consent, and so forth? And that also feeds into audiences, real high level. And again, you can read this in more detail, but first party data is, in essence, that's the ideal data for a marketing team. That means you're capturing the data directly. Second party data is where you're working with a partner or your vendor. You have a relationship there. And then third party data, which I use, but it's you don't have as much flexibility in how you use it, is basically where you buy data from a vendor, and there's numerous vendors. ZoomInfo is a really prominent one. The other thing, and I'll do this in most of the slide decks, is I do try to provide additional readings. Again, I try to keep the content short, but I will, and I'll note this in study guides, but I do pull exam questions from the readings as well. But this first article it does a great job of just breaking down all the platforms and how they've evolved. The article is from 2023. So what I did was I just added a list of kind of newer platforms that have come on since this article was written. And again, this is a tough part about teaching social media marketing is it's rapidly changing. New platforms are coming online all the time. I would say probably the biggest thing with the new platforms coming on is a lot of them are trying to position themselves as less aggressive algorithm-driven platforms, meaning they're more legitimate. You kind of pick the type of content you're going to want to be served up. Whereas, and again, there's a lot of publicity around this, but the algorithms of TikTok and Instagram, are they negative? And so some of these newer platforms are really coming out with this idea of trying to be, more legitimate logic of how they serve up content. And then two more articles from Pew Research Center, just how the U.S. uses social media, and then teams and U.S. teens and demographic traits. And again, goes back to you need to know your customer, how they're interacting with the content. I even try to think, depending on what I'm trying to achieve with the advertising, it may be multiple platforms, but what I'm trying to achieve with each execution on that specific platform is maybe a different part in the funnel. And what I mean by that is maybe if I'm advertising B2B, right, LinkedIn is a key B2B platform. Facebook, a lot more consumers on it, or a lot more individuals. But maybe I'm going to advertise something more along the lines of brand perception on Facebook, knowing people are going to, or Instagram, knowing people are going to be on that tool outside of work, and try to create that brand perception. But then I'm going to use LinkedIn to try to target those same people when they're at work or they're more engaged in their business. And maybe that tactic's going to try to convert them to sales, right? And so it's not just one platform, depending on your customer segment. Maybe it's multiple, but you're just thinking about how, when they go to that platform, what are they trying to consume, right? YouTube, it might be more entertainment versus education and so forth. So hopefully you enjoy the articles. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.